Should the Panthers be looking to take a wide receiver with the 39th pick in the second round, or should they be going best player available? I'll tell you right here on Locked On Panthers.
You are Locked On Panthers, your daily Carolina Panthers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into another edition of the Locked On Panthers podcast, a part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, as always, Julian Council, talking Carolina Panthers with you every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Your team every day. That is our motto here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. And be sure to follow me, Julian Council, on Twitter at Julian Council, where on Fridays like today, I answer your weekly Friday mailbag questions either at me or DM me over on Twitter at Julian Council to participate next week on the weekly Friday mailbag on Locked On Panthers. And after a brief hiatus, we are back answering your Friday mailbag questions. Last week, talked to Jimmy Stein of Locked On Alabama about Bryce Young as Carolina Panthers just wrapped up their pro day tour. Our conversation on yesterday's show, Brandon Olson talking about Anthony Richardson. All four of those quarterbacks, Richardson, Levis, Stroud, Young, I'm totally fine with them being picked number one overall here in Carolina because I think they have the talent. I also feel like the coaching staff is in place that can coach those guys up to the point where they can be viable starting quarterbacks, but not just viable, but they could end up being the guy, hopefully, here in Carolina. So we'll see how it plays out, but one of those four will be the starting quarterback for the Carolina Panthers at some point, I would think, coming up in this 2023 season, maybe week 1, maybe week 7. I don't know, but it's going to happen at some point in time. But the Carolina Panthers will be taking quarterback number 1 overall. Now, what are they going to do the rest of the draft? What are they going to do at 39? That is certainly a question a lot of people have been discussing, have been asking me, and we'll answer that here on the show later on. Let's start off here with Percy, as free agency has pretty much wrapped up. Tomorrow's April. The Carolina Panthers are then going to have 27 days to focus on what they're going to do at the end of the month in the NFL draft and what players that they're scouting and are going to bring in for top 30 visits, who could come in here, start, potentially be backup players and help this team towards its goal of winning the NFC South in year 1 of Frank Reich. Now, Percy asks, now that we have DJ Chark here on a 1-year deal, is the current receiving core better this year than it was last year? If we go back to week 1 of the 2022 season, the Carolina Panthers started DJ Moore, Robbie Anderson, now known as Chosen Anderson, and Shi Smith. This year, you would assume that Adam Thielen, DJ Chark, and Terrace Marshall would be the week 1 starters as it sits right now on March 31st. That is a complete overhaul of your top 3 wide receivers. Now, Terrace was a healthy scratch last year in week 1. He was still on the roster, but because of injuries and getting beat out by Shi Smith, honestly, he was not out there in uniform in week 1 or in week 2. But Adam Thielen, he'll be starting. I think that he's obviously an upgrade from what the Panthers got out of Robbie Anderson. I would say the same thing about DJ Chark. Now, for me, last season, it was really DJ Moore and then Terrace Marshall late in the season that showed some flashes. It wasn't a good wide receiver core. I would still say it's not the greatest wide receiver core, but there's more options. Now you have Adam Thielen. Even if he's an aging player, he put up better numbers than Shi and Terrace and Laviska Shenault combined a year ago, just about 200 yards of receiving less, but he's going up against 3 guys and still look like a more effective player than those 3 combined. So you got Thielen, who I think will be a good player for them, especially in the slot. Chark adds that deep ball threat that they have not had in a while, and what Robbie Anderson was supposed to be in Carolina. And I had a thought yesterday, or it was a couple days ago, how it seemed like week 1 against Cleveland, against the Jets, against the Raiders in 22, 21, and 2020. Those are the only times you ever saw Robbie Anderson being that deep ball threat for the Carolina Panthers. Well, DJ Chark, I think, will be a more consistent deep ball threat. Of course, the quarterback has to do his part, but I think that you're in a better situation with DJ Chark now at wide receiver than you had Robbie Anderson a year ago. Then I'm hoping that Terrace Marshall is going to take that leap and can show himself as a wide receiver 2, maybe 1 of the future here in Carolina. But overall, there's a better group of pass catchers with those 3. maybe Shy and Laviska, will see how they go about the draft and if they bring anybody in, especially at 39, and how that might impact roster cutdowns. If there's any other players out there that decide that they're going to bring in as like UDFAs, undrafted free agents, or as free agents that are veterans, we'll see how it works out. But right now, with those three, Laviska and Shy, plus Miles Sanders and Hayden Hurst, a much better receiving core with the wide receivers, the tight ends, and the running backs than what we had last year here in Carolina, especially after Robbie Anderson, who was a non-factor, and Christian McCaffrey were traded away. All right, over to Mark, who's trying to figure out what the Panthers are going to do there at 39. And Carson, also a similar question. Mark going on and saying the Panthers' primary needs are at edge, linebacker, and cornerback. Secondary needs are offensive line depth. They got McCrary, who can be a starter potentially. They have deep threat Chark replacement because he's on a one-year deal. I wouldn't say that's much of a need. A big boy running back. Okay, short yardage back. All right. And eventual replacement for Thielen at slot and Hurst at tight end. Now, those guys are in 3-year deals, so I really don't look at any of those as positions that you necessarily need to address. Now, if you want to bring in another pass-catching tight end, I understand that. But as far as like wide receiver, like a Thielen replacement is going to be here for at least 2 years, maybe 3. It's a very secondary need in terms of what you're bringing up here. Any other needs? For me, I don't really think so. I think you kind of got it covered. I might already said so, some of them. Do you think Fitterer will draft in order of need or best player available? And Carson asked pretty much the same question. If a guy like A.T. Perry out of Wake Forest is the best wide receiver on the board at pick 39, who do the Panthers go to? Do they go edge, tight end, or best player available in your opinion? Now, Scott Fitterer told us the last couple of seasons that the Carolina Panthers want to use free agency to put themselves in position once they get to the draft to go best player available, that they're not reaching. They're not going out there and taking a player because they need to fill that position, but they want to take the best player that's on their board. So I'm going to sit here and believe that they're going to take the best player on their board. I don't really know what the tight end room's going to look like as far as, I mean, the tight ends coming out of college. Like, I know you have Dalton Kincaid out of Utah. All the mock drafts are saying he's going to be gone in the first round. I guess there's the kid out of Oregon State. I can't really sit here and tell you, if there's going to be a tight end who's worth taking at 39. Edge rushers, same case. Like, I know the top guys. I don't know the second round guys. And I'll bring somebody in who can really break down, what random dude from random college could be there at 39. I don't really know. But from my understanding of what Scott Fitterer said in the past, and kind of what the Panthers have done as well, like Icky was the top guy on their board last year. JC was the top guy on their board the year before. They're going to go best player available. And if the best player available is a tight end, let's take a tight end. The best player available is an edge rusher, let's take an edge rusher. If it is a wide receiver, let's take a wide receiver. It'd be hard for me to think that they would take a quarterback because, of course, within reason, but I would imagine that wide receiver, edge rushers, probably even corner, probably the positions that they're looking at taking there at 39 once they get to the draft. Let's go another question here before I take a quick pause. Chris saying, with DJ Chark being signed, do you think we still use second round pick to draft another top wide receiver, or trade that pick for someone of value to help out with the team, such as a tight end or something? Yeah, and that's similar to what Mark and Carson were asking. I would think that they're still going to be looking at a wide receiver. And when I had the conversation, I believe on Monday and Tuesday about this, I think that they should take one, but I know what they want to do is go best player available. So really what it comes down to is what the board looks like and what positions are there and what players are there, namely, and what they want to do. So I can have the opinion of it. You can have the opinion of what they should do. They're going to go best player available. And after getting 2 wide receivers, they're in position to do that. And getting a tight end, they're in position to do that. They have not got a corner so far. They have not gotten another edge rusher so far. So you could look at it as, maybe they can't go best player available there. There's going to be plenty, I think, of corners and edge rushers that they could take that would make perfect sense at 39. It would not be a reach at all. But I do not think they're going to trade out of the second round pick there at 39, especially after giving away 61 to Chicago and a DJ Moore trade. They got him. Well, it's not the DJ Moore trade, the trade that got them the number 1 overall pick. I don't think they're going to move out of that spot, especially not back. I think they're going to stay right there so they can get a player. All right, let's take a quick pause here on the show. Then I'll come back and answer more of your weekly Friday mailbag questions right here on Locked on Panthers. But first, the Built March Madness bracket is here for one final day, y'all. We know you have a favorite bar or puff, and now is your time, literally your last time to make it count. Go to BuiltMarchMadness.com to vote for your favorites. And when you vote for your favorite bar or puff, you will be entered into a drawing where 50 lucky Locked On listeners will get a free box of Built. Not only that, but one lucky Locked On fan, that could be you, will win a 12-month subscription to Built to have Built's best bars or puffs delivered monthly straight to your door. You got to try Built. Built is the best protein bar ever. Seriously, they're so amazing. You won't think they're good for you. So what makes Built bars and puffs so good, you ask? Well, for starters, they are all high in protein, low in sugar, and covered in 100% real chocolate. That's right, real chocolate on every single bar and puff. Run, do not walk, because this is your last day. To BuiltMarchMadness.com right now to vote for your favorite bar or puff and pick up a box while you're there. You can vote every day, as in this is the last day in March. So hop in and pick and support your pick. All right, let's get back into it. Let's go to Jake now, who says, obviously quarterback is the talk for Carolina and Reich is committed to this process. Knowing your opinion isn't high on Matt Corral. Okay. It's not low, but it's just like the reality of the situation is the Panthers don't want him. Should Reich treat the situation like he has two rookie quarterbacks, assuming they draft a quarterback? Since Matt Corral's rookie season was a wash, well, they're taking a quarterback at number one, Jake. There's no assuming. They are taking a quarterback. They've already said they're doing that. Why write him off without really knowing what he can do with this new staff? I'm honestly curious to see how this plays out. It's already played out. They traded up to get the number one pick to take a quarterback, and they signed Andy Dalton to be the bridge and the mentor. Matt Corral does not have a role here other than third string quarterback or cut or traded. The Panthers have told you everything about how they feel about Matt Corral so far this offseason, especially this new coaching staff. There's not much to evaluate from last year other than like two awful preseason performances. And he was out for the rest of the season because he got injured in that second preseason game. It's unfortunate, but the guy came from a bad quarterback class all last spring. Anyone in the NFL who you would listen to told you that the quarterback class was no good. If you watched them last year, Malik Willis looked absolutely lost. Did not get to see Matt Corral, barely saw any of Desmond Ridder. And then Kenny Pickett, he came along late. But outside of that, those guys were just as bad as they tried to tell you they were. So Matt Corral, it's unfortunate for him that he did not get an opportunity in Carolina, because I think he probably would have gotten an opportunity last year. Now, of course, they thought he was ready for one to play once Baker got injured and before Sam came back instead of having PJ out there. I think they would have liked to see Matt Corral. But when this staff came in and when they traded for the number one pick and when they came out and flat out said they're getting a quarterback, and then when they signed Andy Dalton, the writing was on the wall for Matt Corral. Sure, maybe something happens and Matt Corral gets an opportunity. Hard to see that being the case at this point in time with Dalton already here and with the Panthers taking a quarterback at number one in the draft. As far as I'm concerned, y'all, you should just move on, because the dude is just not a factor for this team. It is just not someone that you should be placing your hopes in, especially knowing that you are literally about to get a quarterback first in the draft and you already have another one who has had experience in the league. I don't know. I don't really understand why anyone would be hung up on Matt Corral and what he could potentially do. Maybe another team, but here in Carolina, when you're taking a quarterback, and when you look at Young and Stroud, those guys are so much better than him in college. They were so much better. Why would you even want Matt Corral? And I'm not sitting here saying he's a bad guy. He's a bad player. I'm sure he's fine, but he's not. He doesn't have a future here in Carolina. So I just think it's time to move on. All right, got Jordan here, who is asking, what are your thoughts on drafting either quarterback that we take their favorite wide receiver, i.e. Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase? Now that can be difficult. Let's see. Anthony Richardson, I don't know who his favorite receiver is. I think it was Pearsall, according to Brandon Olson. I don't know if he's in this draft or not. So sure. As far as Will Levis goes, his favorite wide receiver is Wan'Dale Robinson. He's already on the New York Giants. So unless we're going to trade for him, I don't think the Giants would be interested in doing that. As far as Alabama goes, I guess it's probably Jahmyr Gibbs, who I would love Jahmyr Gibbs. Had they not gone out there and wasted their money on Miles Sanders, I would have been like, cool, give me Jahmyr Gibbs in the second round. Really good player. And I think he probably is going to be there at 39. Don't think he's going to be there at 93, which is unfortunate. But Jahmyr Gibbs, I would have taken him. I would still take Jahmyr Gibbs right now if the Carolina Panthers could get him. Don't know that's going to be a possibility. Then for Ohio State, Jackson Smith and Jigba is going in the first round, so that's just not going to happen. And the Panthers don't have a first-round pick next year to get Marvin Harrison Jr., which is basically what the Bengals did. They got Burrow. Then next year they got Jamar Chase. They're not going to be in position to get Marvin Harrison Jr., unfortunately, next year because of the fact that they traded up to one and gave away that first-round pick. So it's a good idea. It's one of those things that goes back to when the discussion about, okay, you got Joe Brady here. Do you trade up to get Joe Burrow? Like if Joe Burrow needs Joe Brady to have success, maybe Joe Burrow's not that good. Now we've seen Joe Burrow's really good. And if Joe Brady needs Joe Burrow to have success, maybe he's not that good. And we've seen that Joe Brady really was not that good and should not have been in that position so early in his career as a coach, especially after not having called plays or recruited any of the players down there at LSU during that championship season in 2019. I think he has a solid future, especially now that he's in Buffalo. He'll get an opportunity to be an OC again. He'll get an opportunity, I think, to be a head coach down the line in the NFL. But it's one of those things where, okay, yes, in theory, it makes sense to surround your quarterback with someone that they're familiar with. Really, just go out there and get talent around them. And that's what they've been doing throughout this free agency period. And I think that's what we're going to be focusing on also in the draft is making sure the situation with the coaching staff, which check, and with the roster is conducive to a new rookie quarterback coming in here and having success early on in his career. So I don't think you necessarily need to go draft their top guy at their respective college. It's something that you would like to see. I don't think in this situation with the guys that are available that it's even possible just based off of what the Panthers have and don't have as far as assets go. Final question this week. Let's go over to Josh, who says, I watched Steve Smith's podcast. What, you cheating on me? And they talk about types of receivers. I'm kidding. Would you want to pair potentially Jackson Smith and Jigba with Stroud to keep the connection, which is similar to what Jordan's asking between those two, but have two similar receivers? I guess you're saying that him and Thielen are similar, or take one of the top in the speed guys like Jalen Hyatt or Zay Flowers and hope Thielen can mentor them on route running and other technicalities. I guess other techniques is what you meant to say, but maybe technicalities. Yeah, like again, Jackson Smith and Jigba, he's not going to be there. Zay Flowers, from everything I keep reading, he's not going to be there. And then Jalen Hyatt could be there. Feels like of the other two, he's the only one who has an opportunity to be there at 39. I would take him. And I wouldn't get overly concerned about, hey, where is he going to play on the field? You find a way to get your best players out there. You find a way to get the ball in his hands. Like Zay Flowers, you talk about DJ Moore being like a running back playing wide receiver. Like that's Zay Flowers out of BC in a nutshell. Like that dude's awesome. And they're not going to be able to get him because he's not going to be there at 39. I would have loved that. You could have found a way to get the ball to him. And Smith and Jigba not going to be here, so he's not really concerned. Jalen Hyatt, he's one of those deep ball guys. The Alabama game last year was incredible. One of the best you're ever going to see out of performances from wide receiver in any game at any level. Just absolutely insane what he's able to do that afternoon in Neyland Stadium up in Knoxville. I would take Jalen Hyatt. I would love to have him, but it comes down to what I said earlier. Best player available. They've gone out and they brought in wide receivers. There's not really one that you sit here and know will be here in 4 years' time, and that's somewhat of a concern. I don't think it's a chief concern, but I think it's something that the Panthers should absolutely consider in trying to find somebody who can, can be there with Stroud or Young or Levis or Richardson through the course of their rookie contracts. But it's not paramount to success. They can always, I think next season, especially in the offseason, that they're going to spend a lot of time trying to bring in more wide receivers and younger guys. So we'll see how it works out. But edge, wide receiver, I feel like they're going to try and go best player available. If you look at edge and probably corner and maybe even tight end as another pass catching tight end at least are probably bigger needs right now than going out there and getting wide receiver, even though for me, I would still lean towards, hey, if Hyatt's there, if Josh Downs is there, why not go ahead and get those guys, especially Downs, because he fits what Thielen's going to be doing here in Carolina, but he's going to be doing it for a much longer time. So that's where I'm sitting at with all of that. All right, we'll take a quick pause. I'll come back here and then wrap up the show. But before I do that, y'all, the tournament is heating up, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. That's because right now FanDuel is giving new customers a no sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's up to $1,000 back in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win. Just go to FanDuel.com/lockedon and sign up today to claim your no sweat first bet. Then you can wager on everything from the money line to point spreads to which team will be cutting down the nets. All of that in an app that's safe, secure, and super easy to use. So don't miss your shot at a no sweat first bet up to $1,000 when you join FanDuel today. Just go to FanDuel.com/lockedon to sign up. Make every moment more with FanDuel. All right, that's going to wrap up today's show here on Locked On Panthers. Again, next week, at me, DM me, follow me on Twitter, at Julian Council, to get your mailbag questions in. I've been thinking about maybe changing things up with the mailbag where I would take just the top 3 questions and make one segment 1, one segment 2, and one segment 3. Might be doing that, so I'm going to incentivize you to make up the best question possible so that your question will be answered right here on the show. So might be changing things up as we head towards the draft season, as we're really in it, because a lot of them are pretty, much the same question. So might just be taking the top 3 moving forward. So there you go. Probably going to be taking the top 3 questions moving forward on the mailbag, just to kind of mix things up, because I feel like it's kind of getting a little stale with a lot of the same repetitive questions. What's maybe mix things up. So we'll see what I end up deciding to do. Just, keep that in mind when you put in a question next week. But again, y'all, make sure to subscribe to the show, follow for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. And as always, as I tell y'all at the end of every show, be safe, be happy, be whole. As always, keep pounding, and I'll talk to y'all on Monday.